Hi friend, today let's paint these simple Christmas tree baubles in watercolors and this dreamy evergreen tree using wet on wet technique for that wonderful blooming effect. I'm using the following materials and they are listed in the description below too. This is a 300 GSM cold pressed watercolor paper, a ceramic palette to mix some colors, a warm red and a cool red watercolor. I'm using Holbein's Cadmium Red Deep and Crimson Lake. And for the second bauble, I've chosen Sap Green and Phthalo Blue Yellow shade. These colors are already filled in my watercolor pan set, so I'll be using it from there. Next, some metallic gold watercolor from my pre-filled Grabby set. You can use any metallic watercolor that you have handy. I have a bowl of clean water to rinse my brushes in. Using a spray bottle, I spritz the watercolor pans before starting. I'm using two brushes, one a quill mop that can load a lot of water and one a smaller regular round brush to lift off. A black micron tip pen to make some lines in the end, and finally some clean paper towels. I begin by wetting the quill mop brush and laying down a layer of clean water in the shape of a circle. I leave some paper intact for white highlights. The pointed edge of the brush helps me get the edges. I could have made a perfect round using a round edge of a cup or using a compass, but I wanted to just go with the flow on this one. I dab off the brush on a paper towel to just pick up some excess water. Next, using the dry round brush, I lift off some of the water in the shapes that I want the golden highlights to be. In this case, lines or bands across the sphere. The water tends to move back fast into the lifted off area, so we have got to be quick. I take some of my metallic gold and load it onto my quill brush. Then I drop in the gold paint in the spaces I had lifted off the water. I add in some more concentrated gold paint to reinforce the lines. I then add in sap green onto my palette, quickly realizing that I don't want the bauble to end up looking like a watermelon. So instead, I add in some warm and cool red instead for the first bauble. I pick up some of the cool red and start to drop in the color in the remaining damp spaces on the circle towards the left side of the bauble. I'm already loving the blooming or the cauliflower effect that is happening here. I use some of the warmer red to finish the right side of the bauble to indicate the lighter side. Leaving this to dry now, I repeat the same process from start for the next bauble with a few differences. I decide to make a different pattern on this and use a small piece of clean dry paper towel to lift off water from the damp area in random organic shapes. Then I add the gold paint and see if I can experiment with silver instead. But it doesn't show up well, so I go back to using metallic gold. For this bauble, I add in sap green first and then mix some of the phthalo blue to create a sense of vibrancy and light. Mixing in some of the existing red from the palette helps to achieve dark shadows on the bauble on one side. Using the micron tip pen, I then add on some simple details like the cord and the holder where the bauble attaches. Mixing red, green and blue on my palette gives me a dark tone that I use to add in some final touches. I played around with shapes and colors for these Christmas tree decorations and it was a whole lot of fun. Give these a go and let me know how it goes in the comments. So next I paint this evergreen tree. First, I lightly mist the paper from a distance using the spray bottle, ensuring no big droplets settle on the paper. If they do, you can gently dab them off with a tissue. Then I take my quill brush, dab off water from it, and load it with some thick sap green. Using the tip of the brush, I then start from the top to create the branches of leaves on either side. I saw how to do this on a video by one of my favorite YouTube artists named Emma Liffey, and specifically this kind of painting an evergreen tree by Sarah Peacock. I will help share the handles in the description below. You can also start by drawing a thin vertical line as the trunk of the tree and then add the branches on both the sides. Now, given the paper is damp, you will see the blooming of the pigment on areas where the green touches, and this gives it a natural, dreamy, almost frosty look. Now adding in some cadmium red to the sap green, I create a darker tone and use that to create shadows of the branches and leaves on one side. I use the same dark tone to create the trunk peeping through some places. Next, I use some burnt umber, which is warmer by nature, to one side of the base of the trunk to denote light. With some cerulean blue mixed in, I create a ground and shading below the tree. Now for some distant trees in the background, I spray the paper lightly on the sides again, taking care not to wet the already painted tree. You can create a muted tone of the green. However, I chose to mix a muted purple with some ultramarine blue, crimson lake and sap green. And then I dropped in this pigment just the same way as before to create half a tree on each side. And in the end, I use the same purple to create a slanting shadow of the main tree in an effort to tie in the background to the foreground. Hope you'll give these simple Christmas themed art a go yourself. Turn them into festive greeting cards or simply have fun practicing some watercolors like I did. I'll see you in my next video. Until then, season's greetings and happy painting.